All right, I'll take a deep breath because this is quite an intensive thing to do. So get ready, because today we are talking about the building blocks of grammar and vocabulary to helping our students get ready for their future education. So if you specialize in teaching young learners, as I do, then we are responsible for equipping them with the very basis. But we need to make sure that the very bases are really, really well acquired so that the further education is going to go smoothly and they have a chance to achieve mastery that Gosia is going to talk about later on in this block. And so we are focusing on young learners trying to build their competence in English out of blocks of grammar and vocabulary step by step. Okay, so first things first. I need to warn you that I planned it as a slightly interactive session, so it would be really great if you could cooperate a little bit and be active. So when I ask you a question, you can just type it into the chat, and we will have sort of interaction in this not perfect channel of an online meeting. And so first, I am going to teach you a language, okay? Now, this is an artificial language. I made it specifically for this occasion so that nobody knows the words of the language, okay? So I'm going to teach you a few phrases and a few words of this language. And you need to focus a little bit because then there is a test, okay? There'll be a quiz, okay? You ready? Off we go. So a cat in this language is vuru, okay? Now, a black cat is la nokuvuru. Okay, then a big black cat would be a tiku nokuvuru. And I will buy a house by the sea would be milira boru la kala nalavata. A black cat can climb would be la nokuvuru lira somi. A black cat eats meat and nokuvuru tikakova. My mom is a vet would be mikaniva se kalabota. And a black cat likes to sleep would be la nokuvuru siruduna. Okay, so this is the language, just like a sample, a tiny little sample of the language. And here comes the quiz, okay? So if you could just type in the answers in the chat, the first question is, how do you say in my artificial language, cat? Let's see. Oh, okay, lots of people know how to say cat. Perfect, okay. Lovely, you've learned a word. That's it, you're right. Okay, let's try a different one. How do you say in my artificial language, black? No, yeah, that's perfect. Okay, that's a lot of people getting it right. I can't even name you. Very nice. This is the word. Okay. And the last one, how do you say in my artificial language, house? All these words were in the previous slide. We were learning those. Uh-huh. No, not so sure, not so many. Okay, that was the word for the house. Okay, so how is it that you've learned cat so easily and even black cat, but you couldn't learn so well the word house? Of course, there will be people who will learn all of those because this is how memory works, but still, it was much better for the house. Yes, Luisa, the fact that you remembered cat best and black cat not so badly is because it was repeated so many times, okay? If you don't repeat and revise vocabulary, it will get lost. Because if you see something only once, then, you know, if you're not using it, I'm sure that you've got such facts and such abilities, such skills in your minds that you haven't been using for years. And if you had to use it now, it wouldn't be so easy, like some concepts of maths or history or some knowledge of chemistry. You learned that, but because you were not using it too much, it got forgotten, okay? Now, especially with language, it is very important that we revise and repeat, because otherwise the language goes under the process of attrition. So we are losing the language if you're not using it, okay? So if we are to build the strong foundations for the students to learn the language better, we need to come up with something that will ensure that the students will revise the material over and over again so that they never forget, okay? And the modern methodology of teaching languages or any other subjects as well have come up with the concept of spiral curriculum. It is often, we believe that Brunner is the author of the spiral curriculum, which rests on like 3 pillars, okay? So it talks about a curriculum that develops around the different topical areas and uses different concepts of grammar throughout the whole education, starting very early on until the very last stages of education, using the same topics and the same concept reoccurring every now and then, but in a different form, okay? So the 3 major pillars of spiral curriculum would be prior knowledge, repetition, and rising complexity, okay? And we are going to look at each of them one by one, okay? So how do we use those concepts in our classroom so that we are in tune with the spiral curriculum idea? Prior knowledge, okay? All the students come into the classroom with some knowledge, okay? Typically, the knowledge of those students is diverse. They've been watching different cartoons. They played different games. English is present everywhere. So it is unrealistic to expect that your students come to the classroom, you've got a new topic and they know absolutely nothing about it. They will probably know something, okay? So we should be building on this prior knowledge to also motivate them so that they can see that this knowledge is useful because something else is built upon it, okay? And that it's not forgotten and it actually makes sense to remember it because it will be used later on. But because they come with this prior knowledge, we should not be starting with the idea of, you know nothing, I know everything, now I will tell you, okay? Alternatively, we should come with the attitude of test, teach, test approach, okay? So first, we have to see what they know. Then, once we've collected all this knowledge, we teach, okay? Something that they don't know, okay? To finally, again, test the whole thing, what they knew and the thing that we taught, okay? So the approach of test, teach, test. I'll show you an example. So let's imagine that the topic is animals, okay? So this is the topic I made with my students as an example, especially for this presentation. So we were talking about animals and I told my students, okay, let's talk about animals, but let's categorize this knowledge a little bit. So let's think of 4 categories in which we are going to talk about animals. And my students came up with these categories. So we've got animals that live at home, tiny creatures, like, you know, spiders, creepy crawlies, animals in the wild, and fantasy animals as well. Okay, so let's focus on the animals in the wild. Here again, we can think of where those animals can be found. Okay, so they can be found in the forest, in the jungle, or a zoo. We were not sure. Or we can also find some water animals. Okay, so let's focus on water animals first. Okay, now I am picking the brains of the students first in the phase of test. Okay, so this is the first test phase. Okay, I'm asking my students. Okay, so we will be talking about water animals. What water animals do you know? Okay, can you imagine what kind of water animals they could guess? They were 7, 8-ish at the time. Whales, that could be, yes, that's a good, an octopus, definitely. Dolphins, yeah, sharks, fish, excellent, okay? Yeah, that's more or less what they came up with, okay? So we came up with a dolphin and an octopus and a fish, okay, within the time limit I gave them, okay? So now we are moving to the stage of teach, okay? I've tested, we know some. Now we teach. I teach some new vocabulary. So we've got a whale, a crab, and a shark. Okay, I add it to their set of vocabulary that they already had, that they came to the classroom with. Okay, and so now we've got a set of 6 words that I want them to remember. So we are going again to the stage of test. Okay, and now I'm gonna the easiest and the one that I really like idea for testing is the disappearing vocabulary. Okay, so if you've got an interactive whiteboard, you can just blank it out. And if you've got a traditional board, you just wipe it out from the board. Okay, so some of the words are disappearing, but the students still are supposed to tell me what was there before I wiped it off, okay? Now, the idea is based on the theory of anchoring, okay? Anchoring is an idea that when the students are looking at a given part of the board, their brain will recall what the word was before I wiped it off. Okay, and so this way I'm telling the students to close your eyes or to close their eyes or to turn around, and some of the words are disappearing, and then they have to tell me, but not what is missing. Remember not to play what is missing, because if you play what is missing, there will be one child in the classroom that will always shout out the answer first. So the slower children are not going to compete. They will give up. Okay, so instead of playing what is missing, we are always starting to read the words, the pictures from the start. Okay, so it doesn't matter what is missing at the moment. We still are starting to say as a whole class, choral repetition. We are doing shark. What was a there was a crab, whale, dolphin, octopus, fish. Okay, and then again they close their eyes or turn around, and some other animals are missing, and again we are not saying what's missing, but we start from the very beginning. And again, in these places, I just point at the places and they say what was there. Okay, one by one. Okay, until the end, until all the words are missing, and then they are like, wow, now we can see something that is not there. Okay, so this is the test that we do. I made my mind map with Mindomo. It's a very simple tool, very, very intuitive, and it's free, it's online, and it takes like split second to make a mind map like that. If you like working with mind maps with an application or a tool, I highly recommend this one. You can change the styles, you can add pictures, videos, whatever you want. It's all free. In the basic format, basic is absolutely enough. Okay, so that was building on prior knowledge, and now we're looking at repetition, okay? So repeating the same topic, okay? Creating lessons around the same topic is very important for them to come back and revisit the topic and recall all the words that are stored in their memory, to become active for a moment, not to, you know, fall asleep and die there somewhere in the brain, because all the vocabulary is needed, is important, and we need it to communicate all the time. So it has to stay active, okay? It just can't get dormant somewhere in the brain. And so in the Spiral curriculum that we have now, actually everywhere, I think, it's not only about English, but other subjects, most of them also use that because it's a concept of modern methodology. The topics repeat, okay? Apart from animals, what topic can you think of that you can find in a course book for little ones, a little bit older students, and even adults? What would that be? Food. Yeah, definitely. Family. Yeah, family is a good idea too. Parts of the body, yes. Parts of the body, definitely. Work. Body, family, yeah. School supplies, right, as well. Okay, lovely. Perfect. Yeah. So research on big data shows that those that are, regardless of where you teach English, in which part of the world, the typically reoccurring topics would include animals, school, home, food, sport, and family. These are like the top 6 ones that that are always there. Okay, that they will come back to you. Okay, but they do not just come back in the same form, because that will be pointless. They are coming back in different complexities, so that you can add something to what you already know, to how you already understand the language. Okay, so at the beginning, when you were very little, you got a lesson about animals where you've got only a small set of animals, and the teacher tells you how to say that this animal is big, small, this one has 2 legs, this one has 4 legs, and you can say something about the tail, whether it's short or long, okay? And then next year, you open the course book and there's animals again, but this time there are different animals. Again, the set is a little bigger, there are other animals, and this time you are able to say that there are some and there aren't any, okay? And now it works like a cumulative review, okay? So this year you've learned today these new words, and you can say there are some bears, there are some foxes, there aren't any tigers, okay? But because you already know some words, we are using the knowledge that you already have. So you can also say there are some elephants, okay? And it also works progressively. So because you can say something about the legs and the tail of an elephant and a tiger, now you're transferring this knowledge to the new year, and you're saying, okay, and the bear has got a short tail, okay, and the fox has got a long tail, okay. And then a year passes and we open the course book and there are animals again, okay? And these animals are very different because these ones live in the water. And now we are enabled by the teacher to say that something is bigger, slower, smaller, faster, okay? So again, you can say that the seahorse is smaller than the dolphin, but at the same time, you can say that the wolf is smaller or lighter than the bear. Okay, you can also say something about the elephant or something about the monkey because the knowledge accumulates. Okay, and you've got a lot now to talk about more and more with every year. So the student has the feeling that, okay, so I can use the same language, talk about something that I learned a year ago, 2 years ago. So it fits. It sort of goes to the same drawer in the brain. Okay. And then a year passes by, and now you've got parts of the body of the animals. So you've got parts of the body of the animals. You can talk about the water animals, you can talk about the jungle animals and the forest animals and whatever animals you have already learned, because you have accumulated a lot of vocabulary, and now you can talk about all of that, okay? This is how the spiral curriculum works, okay? So it adds, but it adds with some edge, right? Something more, a little bit more complex, so that you can go up and down the spiral within the topic because you already have this knowledge and you should be practicing that so as not to forget. Because forgetting is a natural phenomenon and it happens, okay? So especially when you teach very young learners, I'm sure that you've got this experience that you teach them because they learn very fast. You teach them something on a Friday and they learn it super fast, okay? And you are so excited that your students learned so much today. And then you come back on Monday and they look at you like, who are you? And what do you want? Okay, what topic? What do you want? What words? Okay, as if they have never had that before, because they forget very quickly. So you need to definitely revise and revisit more often when you are working with young learners and less often when you are working with teenagers. But the repetition and revision is essential because without it, this is how the brain works. We need to have this ability to forget. And because we do have this ability, then sometimes some of the words that we've learned just get into the forgotten zone, okay? Now, it actually has a scientific pace of forgetting, gets a scientific idea of the pace, how it happens, okay? So this is Ebbinghaus's forgetting curve, and it tells us that if today I teach you 10 words, and today you have learned 10 words, we are in 100%, okay? You've learned 10 words, and today you remember them. But tomorrow you are maybe going to remember 4. Okay, like in a week, you maybe will remember 2. And if I ask you in a month, you will maybe remember what the cat was in my artificial language. Okay, because this is how forgetting happens. But the power of revision is considerable. Okay, because if I teach you these 10 words today and you start forgetting and you revise them tomorrow, it will only take you 10 minutes to come back to this nearly 100. You will never get to nearly 100, but nearly to 100% you will come back, okay? Then, once you've done it tomorrow, you can revisit the same words on day 7, so in a week time, and it will only take you 5 minutes to recall everything, okay? And in a month, it will only take you 2 to 4 minutes because it has gone to your long-term memory and now it's remembered, okay? So this is why we should revise and recall the vocabulary with the students. If you've got tech kids, students that like technology, there are spaced repetition software applications that help students revise and repeat, okay? And I've chosen those because they are all free to use and students can have fun doing the games because they're gamified. Some of them are competitive like Duolingo, so you can compete with your friend and say, okay, so I have practiced this kind of this vocabulary or this grammar this week. that much. Okay, show me your results. Okay, you're competing here. Or memorize, for example, which not only gives you the opportunity to practice the language itself, but also culture, literature, something that if the students are more interested in English as such, not only in the language, they will enjoy that as well. I've got some ideas of revision games that are very simple and they are cost-free and you can use them in the classroom at any time. Revision games for vocabulary that I like best and work best with my classrooms are chains, for example, especially with the youngest learners, right? So this is the activity when you take a fluffy toy or a ball and you start a sentence saying, I went to the seaside and I saw a starfish, okay? And you throw it to the next person. The next person says, I went to the seaside and I saw a starfish and a dolphin. A starfish, dolphin, and a shark, and so on. The funny thing is that when they start forgetting after like fourth word, probably, they are looking at the people who said the words, which shows evidence for anchoring, yes, because you associate the word with a person, okay, which is really funny to see. The beginning of the sentence, of course, can be whatever you want. If you've got a student at very low levels, you can start very easily, like I like, whatever phrase works for your topic. 5-second rule is like a general game. You can buy it anywhere, but it doesn't suit all the topics for young learners. So what I do is I come to my students with empty cards and I tell them, make the cards yourselves, okay? So if it was the lesson about sea animals, I would give them the cards and I will tell them, okay, so write, name 3 water animals, or name 3 animals that walk on 4 legs, name 3 green animals, okay, or whatever, so that we have a set of such cards for every topic, and then we can play at the end of the year using all the vocabulary, for example, then get a big revision. Order dictation, when you've got a course book that has those mini flashcards, every student has got his own set of mini flashcards, and then you can play lots and lots of different games. My favorite are order dictation, especially for the youngest learners. So one learner puts the pictures in whatever order he wants. Then they put like a book between each other so they can't see each other's pictures, and the other person tries to put his pictures or her pictures in exact same order. Okay, so this one person says, okay, so I've got an eel and a crab and an octopus, and then they compare. They take off the book and they compare whether the order is the same. A similar one is vocabulary battleships. So they both place, for example, 6 such pictures. And then one person is asking, okay, have you got an octopus in place 3? Okay, if I'm right, then I get the octopus. If I'm not right, then I have to try again. Okay, maybe I'll remember the 3 is not octopus. Maybe I'll guess next time, in next round, I'll guess if 3 is a whale. Maybe I'll be more lucky. Perfect partner. So each child takes just one card and they are mingling, walking around in the class, and they're trying to find another octopus, for example. So if I've got an octopus, the grammar structure that you want to use depends on you and on the level of the class. So they can walk around and say, are you an octopus? And if someone is an octopus and I'm an octopus, we're a perfect pair. Okay. Pair collectors, so children are playing in groups of 3 or 4, and they collect not all of the cards, but just some, okay, like maybe 7 or 8, and they hold it like cards, okay, and they are asking each other for a pair, okay, so can I have a starfish? And if I asked Mary, and Mary has got the starfish, she has to give it to me, and I've got a pair. But if Mary doesn't have a starfish, she says, no, sorry, and I miss a turn. Okay, so now she's asking. Okay, they can play memory, but remember, if they play memory, then when they are uncovering the pictures, they need to say what they see, because otherwise there is no language element. Or you can play bingo. I've got a good idea, technical idea, especially if you work with big groups, is that you make the bingo charts on big pieces of paper. You just make, like a table, okay, for 6 or for 9 or 12 pictures, okay? And every time you want to play bingo, you give it away to the students, and the student just puts the cards on it, okay? So it's reusable. So at the end of the activity, you collect it, and you keep it, because if you give it to the students, half of them will lose it, okay? And then it will be difficult to play. So my advice, just make it and collect it and just give it out every time you want to play bingo. Bottle swing I like a lot, and you play it with big flashcards. So you put the flashcards on the floor and the students around the flashcards, and one student swings the ball, and wherever the cork lands, they have to either just name the animal, in this case, or they have to say a sentence with the animal, or with the most advanced classes, I also have a rule that if Mary happens to get a crocodile, she can say the crocodile is green, but the next person in some other round gets the crocodile as well. They cannot say the crocodile is green. They have to come up with a different sentence, okay? So yeah, that's a game my students like best, okay? And the last one is the rising complexity that we have already seen here. So students are revisiting, we are revisiting with the students the same topics, but they are not the same because the complexity of the language gets higher, okay? But it doesn't get terribly higher. It's not a leap. It's just the tiny little steps, especially at the beginning when we are just building the foundations. It can't be a lot. It has to be just n+1, just a little bit, okay? It goes along with the theory of Vygotsky, of the zone of proximal development. I'll show you an example of a child learning to skate, okay? So at the beginning, the child can't really skate, but he is happy that he can sort of keep balance standing on ice, okay? This is his current ability. This is how much he can, okay? But if he gets a little bit of help, he will also move a little bit, okay? Well, he won't jump or make pirouettes, but he will move a few steps forwards, okay? But only if somebody helps him. This somebody in our case is us, okay? The teacher helps the student make those little steps because the student is ready, okay? The student is ready now to make those steps. We know because he can keep the balance. Okay, so on his own, he wouldn't be able to make those steps, but if we help him just a little bit, he can. Of course, there are many other things that he cannot, and this is not the time, all right? So the child is not ready yet, not ready now to do the pirouettes or the jumps or whatever. Maybe if he is persistent and he still likes skating, after years and years of practice, he will get there because the zone of proximal development will move, but not drastically, just a little bit, okay, with every accomplishment. So in terms of English, it would be the situation in which our students can name the sport, okay? So you show them flashcards and one of the flashcards is skating and the students say skating, okay? Or you show football and the students say football, okay? So because they know that, now they are ready and for you to introduce, I'm skating, okay? Now they are not going to do that on their own because they don't know the structure, and also they are going to make mistakes. Yeah. Now with this structure, the typical mistake is ice skating, right? So they are going to like miss the copula. So you're going to correct them all the time, and with your help, they will be able to learn I'm skating because they are ready for that. Okay, they are not going to learn I've been skating for years because that's not the moment. Okay, they are not ready for that yet. Okay, so what we as teachers are doing in this process is building a scaffolding. Okay, so we are helping the students to reach at the next level within the zone of proximal development, but the step is tiny little step, okay? Not a huge leap, because that's impossible, that you cannot do, okay? So how it works for grammar is that you've got, for example, we are introducing past simple quite early on, okay? So we are starting in the first years of education, but we are not starting with everything like right now, yeah? I'm going to present all the past simple to you because I know, okay? Now we are starting with small steps. So the first thing they see is just the past simple of the verb to be, okay? Can you see that? So let's just wasn't and weren't, and that's it. That's enough, okay? Because this is what they are ready for and they can grasp it. And once they've internalized this knowledge, we move on and we say, okay, so now we are going to make a little step forward, okay? And I'm going to make this past simple a little bit more complicated. So we are not only going to focus on be in the past, but we are going to look at different verbs, okay? But if you can see in this picture, in this activity, they are not just all verbs, yeah? Can you see those? What kind of verbs are they in this past simple? Regular, of course, right? They are all regular because it's easier, because there's a bigger rule. If there's a rule, okay, they are all regular. So first we start with to be in the past, then we introduce the regular verbs because it's easier. They're not going to make mistakes, okay? We are just giving them enough to develop this, to make this one more step, okay? And later on, next year, or in a few different other lessons, we are introducing them to the concept of negative, okay? And this time we are introducing also irregular verbs. So we've got go, see, have, right? And finally, in the end, we can put that all together and also add a question, okay, with the operator, which is quite difficult for children. And we can start making questions and answering those questions using both regular, irregular verbs and also to be, because we have to revise everything, okay, not to forget. It's not like we've learned, it's not, you know, I'm telling my students, it's not like biology, right? You've learned something and now you can forget it because we are never going to revisit it again. This is language. You are going to need absolutely everything. You can't forget anything, okay? So yeah, so we have to come back to this to be in the past as well. Okay, my ideas for grammar revision, again, very simple ones and, you know, cost-free. Chain stories, which I'm sure that you're using. So just, you know, I start a story in the past and throw a fluffy toy. Somebody catches it and continues the story, which is like a typical kind of activity. Students like it. Dear Diary, I like a lot. This is when I tell my students, okay, think of a famous figure from the past. You are this famous figure from the past. Write 2-3 sentences about your regular day in such a way that we might try to guess who you are. Okay. Or travelers letters. You say, okay, you're all time travelers. I would like you to travel back in time somewhere. And when you come back, we are going to write letters in which you are going to describe what you saw, and we will try to guess what times they were, okay? Or what place it was. Who was I? It's like a 20-question game when the students are thinking of a figure from the past, and you are asking questions and they are guessing, okay? Secrets from your past, it works like two truths and a lie, but instead of present, you are making it past, okay? So you say, okay, when I was a child, I had a pet turtle. When I was 5, I something, yeah, and 2 are true and 1 is false, okay? And you need to guess. Interview the time traveler, so you send those time travelers back in time, and then they come back, and then then another student interviews the time traveler. So what did you say? Okay, where did you go? Who did you meet? Okay, we are practicing the question formation, and the students are practicing sentences in the past. Retelling a story challenge. So my favorite version of this one is that you take 4 students outside the classroom or somewhere in the corner, and you read to them a very short story, but it needs to be quite detailed, okay? And then they go and form 4 groups, and each student retells the story that they heard, okay? Then the whole group try to recreate what they remember from what the student said. They write it down, and then we compare it with the original, and it's never the same, okay? It really is funny. Breaking news. So you come into the classroom, or students write short news, depending how advanced they are. If you've got more advanced students, they can write the story, the news on their own. I've got the original one my students made it especially for me for this session. Yesterday, a cat was climbing a tree when it got stuck. The fireman arrived and tried to help the cat. The cat got scared and attacked the fireman. And this is the end of the breaking news. And now the class asks questions, okay? What else would we like to know about this story, okay? And we are trying to make up for the missing information, okay? So what was the fireman wearing? Why was the cat scared? Okay, we're trying to answer those to make this breaking news more interesting. Okay, so just to put it all up together, we were talking about building strong foundations so that the students' knowledge can get more advanced with years to come, because they also need a lot more years of education to build the house of proper English competence, okay? But because we are working with children, we need to make sure that the basics, the foundations are really well laid. because if we don't, then there will be problems. Like I can see with my students at the university, I teach at the English department, and the students are really highly advanced C2 students with no problems with inversion of very complicated grammar structures. And then we go to the schools for teacher training, and I can see that they have problems with the simplest grammar because these foundations were not laid well. Okay, they were just rushing to get to the C2 level. So that's how it works. So we were talking about this spiral curriculum, and I would love you to remember that this spiral curriculum is based on students' prior knowledge. So we have to use whatever the students can. Don't ever assume that they know nothing. Ask them, maybe they will know something, and sometimes you can be even surprised how much they know. And the revision and repetition, because this is the key for them to have those foundations laid well. And that we are teaching every time we are revisiting the topic, the complexity of the topic itself, of the context in which it's presented, is a little bit more complicated, a little bit more complex, but we are doing it very slowly. So the steps are small. It's more complicated, but it's not incredibly more complicated, just a little bit more complicated, because otherwise they will not jump to it. Okay. And with that, I'm leaving you with those foundations, I hope, built for the next session, where Gosia is going to tell you how the students, teenage students, are using the knowledge to build a house on those foundations they get from us when we do our job well. Thank you so much.